Imagine for a moment that you are a lantern in a room where many are still learning how to see. Your light is soft, steady, and sincere. It isn't trying to dominate the room. It simply reveals what's already there. Now imagine the shock that light creates for the person who has built their identity in shadow, who survives by controlling angles, dimming corners, and curating reflections. When your light enters, their story about themselves begins to flicker. And here is the uncomfortable truth that most people won't say out loud. Empaths often trigger envy precisely in the people who claim to love them. Not because empaths are boastful or perfect, but because empathy illuminates the gap between who we are and who we say we are. That gap is painful to confront. If you've ever felt punished for your kindness or sensed a subtle resentment in someone who calls you my person, this episode is for you. What we are exploring today is simple to describe, but complex to live. Empaths, whose nervous systems are finely tuned to other people's emotional states, often become mirrors that reveal truths. In Jungian language, this is the moment when the shadow, the hidden, disowned parts of the self, meets light. Some people respond with gratitude. Others respond with envy. Envy, in plain English, is the pain we feel when someone else's qualities expose what we believe we lack. And when this envy appears in relationships that promise love, it can be confusing, corrosive, and deeply lonely. Welcome to Deep Psyche Lab. I'm glad you're here. If you're drawn to Jung, depth psychology, and finding meaning in everyday life, you're among friends. If this conversation resonates, please like the video. It helps more sensitive, thoughtful people find it. Subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab and tap the bell so you won't miss the next episode. And at any point, if something strikes home, add the phrase, "I honor my light," in the comments. It's a simple way to reclaim your inner authority. Let's begin where most empathic lives begin. In childhood, in rooms where feelings were weather, filling the air whether or not anyone named them. Many empaths learn to track moods as a survival skill. The smallest flinch in a parent's face, a certain silence at the dinner table, the tension hiding behind "I'm fine," all of it becomes data. Over time, this constant attunement grows into a gift, the ability to sense what others are carrying and to respond with presence. But gifts in psychology are rarely free. They come wrapped with tasks. The task of the empath is differentiation, learning where you end and others begin. Without that, your light becomes a service lamp for every room you enter, and your life becomes a maintenance plan for other people's shadows. Envy arrives when your quiet strengths highlight someone else's unfinished business. Carl Jung observed that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. An empath's presence often starts that process, sometimes without a word. Your steadiness challenges their volatility. Your honesty agitates their performance. Your receptivity unsettles their need to control. In response, a person who loves you may begin to compete with you subtly for the position of most wounded, most insightful, most righteous, or most essential. This is not love. It is an unconscious contest to avoid shame. And shame is envy's hidden engine. If you shine that easily, what does it say about me that I struggle to glow at all? Think of relationships as rituals of reflection. We meet each other, we show each other who we are, and we discover who we are not. When someone says they love you, but resents your ease with feeling, your capacity to listen, or your refusal to abandon yourself, you are witnessing a conflict between their persona and their shadow. Persona, Jung's word for the mask we present to the world, likes to be praised. The shadow contains the qualities we deny: our insecurity, dependency, envy, fear of insignificance. When your empathy invites authenticity, their persona loses control, and the shadow stirs. For some, this is the doorway to growth. For others, it's the beginning of a sabotage campaign. Small criticisms, withheld warmth, a shifting of goalposts, and a narrative that frames you as too much or not enough, sometimes in the same day. People rarely say, "I envy you." Envy travels in disguise. It may arrive as advice delivered with a sting. You care too much. That's why people use you. It may arrive as jokes that shrink you. Here comes the therapist again. It may arrive as silence at your good news or as sudden busyness when you need support. The content changes, but the pattern remains. Your light is punished. In many relationships, especially those that began with intense idealization, an empath is first placed on a pedestal for their compassion, then quietly resented for it. Why? Because idealization is a form of fantasy control. If I can make you special in a way that serves my story, I can avoid meeting my own depths. But when your empathy doesn't bend to that fantasy, when you remain yourself, envy awakens like a guard dog barking at a door you never agreed to keep locked. The paradox of empathy is that it feels like surrender but functions as strength. An empath listens not to be controlled but to witness. You are not porous because you are weak. You are porous because you understand life as shared. For those who equate vulnerability with danger, your openness is both a magnet and a mirror. They want the warmth of your acceptance, but fear the intimacy that your presence makes possible. Better to compete with you than to open with you. Better to critique your tenderness than to admit their own longing. In psychoanalytic terms, this is a defensive maneuver. Projection. Instead of admitting I feel inadequate when you are calm in storms, the envious partner projects inadequacy back onto you. You're naive. You don't see how manipulative people are. The defense protects their self-image but harms the relationship. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you share an intuition about a friend's burnout. You offer it softly without judgment. A partner who feels threatened by your insight might accuse you of overstepping or claim you're creating problems, only to later repeat your observation as their own. This is not just forgetfulness. It is envy trying to steal the value of your perception while denying the value of you. Or imagine you celebrate a small victory, rested sleep after months of anxiety, and the person who claims to love you replies with an unrelated story about their stress, then ends the conversation there. That pivot is a tiny theft. Not because their stress isn't real, but because they could not tolerate your moment of ease shining near their chronic struggle. These are small moves, yes, but a relationship is built from small moves. The pattern is the message. Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Empathy catalyzes transformation by inviting truth. Envy resists transformation by punishing truth. A love that resents you for being yourself cannot transform. It can only bargain. The bargain often sounds like this: dim slightly and I will feel safe. Dim more and I will call you loyal. Dim completely and I will call you my soulmate. None of this is explicit. It lives in tone, timing, and the unequal rhythm of give and take. If you have been in such a dynamic, you know the cost. You begin to ration your light. You begin to translate yourself into palatable portions. You apologize for your intuition before you speak. You become a careful version of a generous person. This is the slow erosion of a self. There is a reason empaths end up in these binds. Empathy without boundaries is not empathy. It is fusion. Fusion feeds envy. If I can drink from your presence without ever being asked to grow, I will both need you and hate you for making me need you. The antidote is not to close your heart. The antidote is differentiation, the quiet knowledge felt in the bones that you are not responsible for managing someone else's self-esteem. Boundaries are not walls against love. They are the structure within which love can breathe. A boundary is a sentence that begins, "Here is what I choose." It is an act of self-respect that allows the other person to meet you as a whole, not as a sponge. When you stop performing emotional labor as proof of loyalty, envy has nowhere to hide. It must name itself, or leave. Let's name a nuance. Not all envy is malicious. There is such a thing as benign envy, which recognizes another's quality and uses it as inspiration. A friend might say, "Your steadiness makes me want to slow down and listen more." That is envy turned toward growth. Malignant envy, by contrast, is the refusal to be taught by what you admire. It wants the fruit without the labor, the glow without the dark nights that shaped it. When malignant envy meets an empath, it tries to metabolize the empath's gifts by discrediting them. You're only kind because you're scared of conflict. You think you're better than me. Your calm is passive aggression. Notice the frame. Your light is merely a rebranding of a flaw. If you absorb that frame, you will spend years litigating your motives instead of living your life. Depth psychology offers a map for what to do when you notice these patterns. First, acknowledge the archetypal forces at play. The lover archetype in you, your longing for connection, is meeting the shadow of the other, their fear of exposure. The caregiver in you may overfunction, inviting the orphan in them to underfunction. The remedy is not to shame your archetypes, but to integrate them. Let the lover be guided by the warrior, who protects the boundaries of the heart. Let the caregiver be tempered by the sovereign who delegates and trusts others to learn. Integration means you do not abandon tenderness, but you refuse to trade it for peacekeeping. Your empathy remains. Your role as the emotional shock absorber does not. There is also the matter of projection in reverse. Empaths, eager to see the best in others, sometimes project their own depth onto people who are not ready to carry it. You sense the seed of honesty, the seed of courage, and you water it with your attention. But watering a seed is not the same as pretending a seed is a tree. If you convince yourself that potential equals presence, you will ignore the evidence of envy, because the story of who they could be is more satisfying than the experience of who they are. Jung warns us that what we do not make conscious appears in our life as fate. If your fate is to repeatedly meet people who both adore and resent you, ask, what in me is comforted by being necessary? What in me is frightened by being fully seen without having to earn it? The answer is rarely an accusation. It's usually a grief. Many empaths carry a historical belief that love is attention purchased with care. In such a marketplace, envy is almost guaranteed. If I believe I must supply the relationship with meaning, then your dependence confirms my worth until it becomes your weapon. The moment I stop feeding you, you punish me. This is not love. It is an economy of deficit. To exit it, we must discover a different economy, one where presence is offered, not extracted, where growth is mutual and envy, when it flickers, is named and transformed rather than hidden and weaponized. Consider how envy recedes when two people are engaged in individuation, the Jungian term for becoming whole, not perfect but distinct and integrated. In individuating relationships, your gift does not threaten me because I am tasked with developing my own. Your calm invites me to anchor. Your sensitivity invites me to tell the truth. Your intuition invites me to listen inward. If instead I am committed to my persona, my image of being wise, strong, or indispensable, then your authentic strengths will expose my performance. Exposure is painful and pain seeks relief. Without consciousness, relief arrives as control. I may control by diminishing you, by competing with you, or by turning your every insight into a referendum on your character. Each path avoids the honest sentence. Envy secretly wants to say, I feel small near your wholeness. Let's sit with that sentence. I feel small near your wholeness. It is a completely human feeling. There is nothing morally wrong with it. The problem begins when we deny it, then ask others to atone for it. If someone you love could say that sentence to you, there would be room for repair. You might respond, thank you for trusting me with that. I don't need to be special here. I want to be with you. That is how envy transforms, through confession and companionship. But if confession is impossible, only control remains, and control tends to escalate. It begins with tone. It grows into patterns, delays, interruptions, corrections, exclusions. Eventually, you may find yourself carefully curating your own light, not to be humble, but to be safe. A common question arises here. How do I know the difference between genuine feedback about my blind spots and the kind of envy that seeks to dim me? The body often knows before the mind. After a healthy conversation, even hard feedback leaves your dignity intact. You feel challenged but not erased. After an envious attack, you feel confused, foggy, and subtly guilty for existing as you are. Healthy feedback offers specifics and stays in relationship. Envy uses generalities and withdraws affection until you comply. Healthy feedback honors your autonomy. Envy bargains with your belonging. There is a second question. Why do some empaths stay? Not because they are foolish. Often because they are loyal to possibility. Empaths remember who you could be on your most honest day, and they don't want to abandon that version of you. But the danger of loving possibility is that you might betray reality. And reality is the only ground from which love can grow. If reality reveals that someone cannot receive your light without punishing it, you are not obligated to keep testing the hypothesis that love will fix it. Love is a path, not a spell. It requires two walkers, each carrying their own pack. What does repair look like in a relationship where envy has been named? It looks ordinary and brave. The envious partner practices saying the uncomfortable words. The empathic partner practices letting silence do some of the work. There is less lecturing, more listening. There are agreements about what happens when old patterns return. There is a shared language for the edge between support and rescue. None of this is dramatic. That's the point. Envy is often fueled by a hunger for intensity, to feel significant by being either the hero or the victim. Repair starves that hunger by introducing steadiness. If both people can tolerate steadiness, the relationship can heal. If one person needs the drama that envy creates, healing cannot take root. I want to speak to the empath who has begun to doubt themselves. You are not wrong for wanting deep companionship. You are not wrong for caring. You are not wrong for noticing patterns others pretend not to see. Your task is to protect the conditions that allow your gift to remain clear. That means rest, solitude, honest friendships, and a spiritual or reflective practice that keeps you fluent in your own inner language. It also means letting your no be as sacred as your yes. When you withhold your no to keep the peace, you sign a silent contract that your needs are negotiable. Envy reads that contract and exploits it. When you say no with tenderness, you teach both of you that love can hold difference without punishment. This teaching is the heart of intimacy. There's a third question. What about the empath's own shadow? Empathy can become self-important. I see more, therefore I am more. If that sentence is hiding anywhere in you, envy will find it and drag it into the open. The antidote is humility. Not the kind that makes you small, but the kind that tells the truth about complexity. You are perceptive, yes, and you also miss things. You are present, and you also need distance. You are kind, and you also have edges that someone might find sharp. Humility doesn't deny your light, it removes the performance from it. When empathy is humble, it triggers less defensiveness, even in those who are still learning how to meet themselves. We have not yet spoken about the cultural layer. We live in economies that reward performance, speed, and certainty. Empathy moves at the speed of trust, not at the speed of sales. In such a context, your way of being may be dismissed as impractical or weak. When those messages seep into personal relationships, envy can wear a cultural badge. I'm just being realistic. What that often means is, I prefer control to contact. Remember that cultures shift. Yesterday's soft skill is tomorrow's survival skill. We are not meant to live as isolated performers. We are meant to participate in each other's becoming. Envy interrupts that participation. Empathy restores it. The work is to build circles, friendships, partnerships, teams, where restoration is normal, not rare. Notice how different you feel around people who are at peace with their own path. Their eyes do not measure you, they welcome you. Their curiosity is not an audit, it is an invitation. These people do not need you to dim, they need you to arrive. Often they are not easy to impress because they are not keeping score. Instead, they are simple to delight because they delight in the simple. In such company, your empathy stops working as a shield. It becomes what it always wanted to be, a bridge. If you have not known that feeling in a long time, take this as a blessing and a challenge. There are people who can love you without envying you, but you may need to leave rooms where love is a performance before you can find rooms where love is a practice. There is a silent grief that many empaths carry, the grief of being misread. You offer presence and are called manipulative by those who cannot imagine generosity without a hook. You offer truth and are called dramatic by those who have anesthetized themselves to feeling. You offer boundaries and are called selfish by those who prefer your compliance. This grief is legitimate. It deserves ritual, journals, prayers, walks, tears, conversations that don't require you to justify what you know in your body. Without ritual, grief becomes bitterness, and bitterness is what envy wants from you. It wants you to stop trusting your own nature. Do not give it that victory. Let grief do its original job, to transform attachment to what cannot love you into devotion to what can. Sometimes the kindest act is also the firmest. If you recognize that someone you love is caught in envy and unwilling to admit it, you do not have to stage a courtroom. You can speak one sentence from your center. I love you, and I will not participate in a pattern that asks me to dim. Then return to your life. If they reach for you with honesty, you will know. If they reach for you with blame, you will also know. Jung said that what is rejected from the self appears in the world as fate. If you reject the belief that you must be small to be safe, a different fate awaits you, one that respects your scale. To the person who envies an empath they love, if you are listening, this is your bridge back to intimacy. Your pain is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that you long to be whole. When their light hurts, ask yourself, what in me is waiting to be born? What skill, what voice, what calm have I outsourced to them that wants to grow in me? If you can sit with those questions and speak them aloud, you will find that envy melts into its original form, desire. desire to be brave, desire to be honest, desire to belong without pretending. That desire is the beginning of real love. I want to give you language you can use when the pattern shows its face. If someone who loves you offers a cutting comment after you share something tender, you can respond slowly, "I hear that you have strong feelings. I'm going to step back rather than argue. I'm open to talking when we can both protect each other's dignity." If they roll their eyes, you can add nothing. If they follow, you have the beginning of a different dance. If a friend goes quiet when you shine, you can try. "I value your presence. When I share good news and get silence, I feel alone. Is there anything happening for you that we should name?" This is not about forcing others into confession. It is about refusing to normalize the dimming of your life. Empaths sometimes ask, "Is there a way to keep my light without triggering envy?" Not entirely. Light reveals, some will look away. But you can reduce unnecessary triggers by living from devotion rather than display. Devotion asks, "What is mine to tend?" Display asks, "Who is watching?" When your life is oriented around tending, your health, your craft, your friendships, your prayer or practice, you become consistent in a way that is hard to attack. Display is easy to mock because it depends on response. Devotion is hard to mock because it depends on commitment. Let your empathy be devotional. Let it serve the people who consent to depth. Let it rest where there is no consent. Now a word about the inner dynamics that make envy in love so sticky. For many people, the persona of caring partner is a central identity. If your empathy suggests that caring without control is possible, you threaten that identity. It can feel to them as though you are erasing their best feature. You are not. You are inviting them to relocate their worth from being needed to being known. Being needed is a short-term high. Being known is a long-term home. To move from one to the other requires grief. The envious partner must grieve the performance that got them praise. The empathic partner must grieve the fantasy that their patience will be enough. After grief, there is clarity. The question becomes simple. Do we want truth more than we want control? If you answered yes, you will feel a clean fear followed by a spacious peace. You will begin to notice how often conversation circles the same drain. You will opt out. You will notice your old impulse to rescue. You will place a hand on your heart and wait 3 breaths. You will answer only the question that was asked. You will stop narrating your motives. You will speak in the first person. You will describe what you can offer and what you cannot. To some, this will look like distance. To those who know you, it will look like dignity. The psyche loves paradox. The more you protect your light, the more it can illuminate without burning you. The more you say no to roles you never auditioned for, the more freely you can say yes to love. The more you release the need to be understood by everyone, the more deeply you can be seen by the right ones. Empaths trigger envy not because they are arrogant, but because they embody a way of being that is scarce in a culture of performance. Presence without agenda. That way of being will always be confronting to those who equate value with victory. You are not here to win. You are here to reveal. If this is resonating, take a second to like the video. It genuinely helps the channel. And if you want this kind of depth in your week, subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab and hit the bell. Your presence here tells the algorithm that thoughtfulness matters. Also, drop "I honor my light" in the comments if you're claiming this path. Oh, it's not a flex, it's a practice. Before we close, let me offer a brief inner exercise you can carry into your next conversation. When you feel that old fog, when someone's response starts to make you doubt your sense of things, pause. Name 3 facts of the moment quietly. What was said, what you felt, what you need. Facts are not weapons. They are anchors. Then choose one sentence that preserves relationship without sacrificing self-respect. It might be, "I want to keep talking, but not like this." It might be, "I'm noticing I'm getting smaller inside. I'm going to step back and we can return later." It might be nothing at all, just the choosing of silence. Silence used wisely is not withholding. It is the space where we refuse to act out the old script. We also promised a gentle disclaimer, and here it is. This channel is educational and not a substitute for therapy. If this episode opened difficult memories or patterns, working with a good therapist can give you a safe place to map them with care. Let's gather the threads. Empaths shine a soft light that reveals reality. Some who say they love them, especially those attached to persona and threatened by shadow, will feel envy. Envy hides in advice with a sting, in jokes that shrink, in silences that erase. Its goal is to make you dim so the other can avoid meeting themselves. The way through is not to harden, but to differentiate. To keep your heart open while letting your boundaries speak. To love potential but live with reality. To prefer devotion over display. To find or build relationships where humility and confession are possible. Where envy can be named and transformed into desire for growth. And perhaps most importantly, to protect the simple conditions, rest, reflection, truthful friendships, that let your empathy remain clear. One memorable line to carry into your week. Do not trade the lamp of your presence for a ticket to someone else's theater. The show will end. Your light is what helps you walk home. If this spoke to you, add, "I honor my light" in the comments, and tell me where in your life envy has tried to dim you, and what boundary you're ready to practice. Like the video if it helped, subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab for more deep mind stories and knowledge, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's next. I'm grateful you spent this time with me. Take care of your light, and I'll see you in the next one.